the dreams that knew her name. Emma Clark pressed her fingers to her temples, trying to shake off the lingering echoes of the dream. Morning sunlight streamed through the thin curtains of her small Boston apartment, but the brightness outside contrasted sharply with the storm in her mind. She could still see him, the man whose face had haunted her sleep for the last month. Dark hair streaked with silver, eyes of piercing gray that seemed to look straight into her soul, and an aura that radiated authority but also something fragile, almost human beneath the surface. It had started 5 nights ago, or maybe it was 6. Every dream felt increasingly vivid, increasingly real. Last night they had walked through Central Park in the crisp autumn air. Leaves crunched beneath their feet. They had spoken of ordinary things, books, coffee, the city, but with a sense of familiarity so intense it was impossible to explain. Emma knew this man. She hadn't met him, yet she did. Each encounter in her dreams etched into her memory like photographs. The way he smiled, a slight asymmetry that seemed perfectly natural, the soft hum of his laughter when he was amused, the way his hands moved as he spoke. Emma sighed and rubbed her eyes, trying to remind herself that these were only dreams. Her life in Boston was orderly, comfortable, and safe. At 28, she had built a successful career as a software engineer at a respected tech firm, predictable, satisfying. Yet lately, she felt restless. The dreams had coincided with a decision she had made 3 weeks ago. She would leave Boston and move to New York. She had convinced herself it was professional growth that called her, but deep down, she couldn't ignore a strange pull toward something she couldn't define. Something or someone waiting for her. Her phone buzzed on the counter, pulling her from her thoughts. She glanced at the screen and almost dropped it. It was an email from Sterling Tech Industries, one of the top innovation companies in New York City. They wanted to schedule a final interview for the senior software architect position she had applied for. The email mentioned that the interview panel would include the CEO himself, Jackson Reed. Emma's heart raced. She quickly searched for his profile online, and then she froze. The man on the screen was him, the exact man from her dreams. Every detail matched, the gray eyes, the dark hair with silver at the temples, the confident posture, even the slight curve of his smile. She felt a shiver run down her spine. Coffee slipped from her hand, breaking against the hardwood floor. Impossible. She had never seen this man in real life. Maybe her subconscious had created the image from somewhere she had glimpsed it, a magazine, a news article. Yet she couldn't remember ever seeing him before. The feeling of recognition was too intense, too precise. Her hands shook as she cleaned up the broken mug, a strange mixture of fear, disbelief, and excitement coursing through her. Meanwhile, on the 45th floor of the Sterling Tech Tower, Jackson Reed stood with his back to the floor-to-ceiling windows, looking out over the Manhattan skyline. His life was the dream of countless entrepreneurs, a multi-billion-dollar company, influence in the tech industry, financial freedom that few could imagine. Yet none of that mattered, not since the dreams began. For 4 weeks every night, Jackson had dreamt of a woman he had never met. Her hair the color of autumn copper, her warm brown eyes that seemed to see straight into him, her gentle, infectious laugh. He could recall the weight of her hand in his, the tilt of her head when she listened, the unspoken understanding that passed between them in moments of silence. These dreams had become so vivid that waking up felt like leaving something unfinished, like a book ripped from his hands before the final page. Jackson had never been romantic. His marriage ended 5 years ago, sacrificed on the altar of ambition and his relentless drive to build Sterling Tech. Since then, personal connections had felt like distractions, but these dreams had disrupted everything. During meetings, his mind wandered. During discussions with his executive team, he found himself replaying moments from his nightly visions. Even his assistant, Bethany, had noticed the subtle change in his demeanor, though she couldn't quite articulate it. Today, however, the dream was about to become real. Bethany handed Jackson the final interview file, and when he saw the candidate's photo, Emma Clark, the world seemed to stop. Every nerve in his body pulsed with recognition. She was her, the woman from his dreams, and she would be walking into his office in less than 3 hours. He tried to steady himself. Rational thoughts screamed that it was impossible, that dreams were just electrical impulses in the brain. Yet staring at her photo made his rational mind falter. He studied every detail of her resume. MIT graduate, brilliant software engineer, published work in AI integration, and an impressive record of innovative solutions. Objectively, she was perfect for the role Sterling Tech needed her for. But the dreams made this more than professional. It was personal, inexplicably so. Emma, on the other hand, stepped out of the cab in front of the towering glass building of Sterling Tech Industries. Her new navy suit felt stiff, formal, almost alien, but necessary. Inside her leather portfolio were her carefully prepared presentation, her resume, references, and the documents she had meticulously prepared for the interview. Everything was ready, except her nerves. The dreams had grown more intense in the past few nights. In them, she had already stood in this office, spoken these words, shared these moments with him. The line between reality and dream blurred, and her heart threatened to betray her with its erratic rhythm. She stepped into the lobby, greeted by gleaming surfaces and futuristic displays showcasing Sterling Tech's innovations. A receptionist called her name, and within moments, Bethany, a young, professional assistant, appeared to escort her to the executive floor. The elevator ride was a mixture of casual conversation and tense anticipation. Emma tried to focus on Bethany's words about the company, the role, the logistics of the interview, but her mind kept drifting to the man whose dreams had consumed her nights. This was absurd, irrational, and yet undeniably real. As the elevator doors opened, the corridor stretched ahead, lined with modern art and glass-walled offices. Emma followed Bethany to a large corner office, her pulse quickening with each step. She could see him before she entered. Jackson Reed, standing with his back to her, looking out at the skyline. Even from behind, she recognized him from her dreams. The set of his shoulders, the way he held his head, the quiet authority in his stance. Bethany opened the door and announced her arrival. Jackson turned slowly. The moment their eyes met, the room seemed to still. Recognition flashed in his gray eyes, mirrored by shock and disbelief on Emma's face. Time itself seemed suspended. "Please come in," Jackson said finally, his voice steady but layered with the storm beneath. Emma stepped inside, legs trembling. Everything about this encounter felt impossible yet inevitable, as if this meeting had been written long before either of them existed. When Jackson extended his hand, the professional formality could not hide the electricity of the touch. Emma's voice wavered but held. "The pleasure is mine, Mr. Reed." "The pleasure is mine," he replied. The words sounded absurd against the intensity of recognition, the surreal certainty that they were not strangers. The interview began formally. Emma presented her ideas on quantum computing with precision, clarity, and a passion that mirrored Jackson's own understanding of the technology. Yet both were acutely aware of each other's presence, a silent acknowledgement of the extraordinary coincidence that had brought them together. Other executives watched and nodded approvingly, impressed with her knowledge and insight. But the real tension, the real truth, lay between Emma and Jackson. When he asked her why she chose New York, their eyes locked in a silent exchange only they could understand. "I felt drawn here as if something important was waiting," Emma admitted. Jackson's heart skipped. He understood exactly. The same pull had led him to notice her photo on the resume, the same pull that had started the dreams. After the other executives left, Jackson asked her to stay. Alone in the office, the masks of professionalism dropped. "This is impossible," Emma whispered. "I've been dreaming about you for a month every night." Jackson stepped closer, relief and disbelief flooding him. "I've been dreaming about you too. Same timeline, same frequency. I thought I was losing my mind." They stood by the window, the city stretching beneath them. The impossible reality pressed upon them, yet neither wanted to break the connection. "When did your dreams start?" Jackson asked. "Exactly 4 weeks ago," Emma replied. Jackson swallowed. "Mine started the same night, the day I approved the posting for the position you applied for." Silence followed, too precise to be coincidence, too synchronized to be random. The universe had conspired to bring them together. Emma shivered. "Part of me wants to run from how impossible this is, but part feels like I finally found what I didn't even know I was searching for." Jackson softened. "I feel the same. For years, I believed relationships were distractions. Then you appeared in my dreams, and suddenly nothing seemed certain except you." Hours passed. Conversation flowed far beyond interview questions, beyond reason, beyond reality itself. The line between dreams and waking life blurred, setting the stage for something extraordinary. And so began the story of Emma Clark and Jackson Reed. A story of destiny, dreams, and a connection that no logic could ever explain. The day after the interview, Emma Clark found herself walking the streets of Manhattan with a strange mixture of exhilaration and anxiety. The skyline glinted in the morning sun, reflecting off the glass towers that seemed to stretch endlessly into the sky. Yet the beauty of the city could not distract her from the whirlwind that had begun in Jackson Reed's office. Every step she took, every taxi that honked past, felt surreal. How could a stranger she had only known through dreams suddenly be part of her reality? And yet he was real. Jackson Reed existed. He had stood before her, eyes locked with hers, acknowledging a connection neither of them could explain. Emma's mind replayed every detail of that first meeting. She remembered the faint tremor in his hand when they shook, the subtle quiver in his voice when he admitted he had been dreaming of her, and the almost imperceptible recognition that had passed between them in silence. She had always prided herself on being logical, data-driven, and disciplined, yet nothing she had learned in coding or algorithms could account for the phenomenon of Jackson Reed and the dreams that had led them to each other. She had to remind herself that she was here for a job, a career move that she had meticulously planned for months. Yet the presence of Jackson, the man who seemed to have stepped straight out of her subconscious, made her pulse quicken and her thoughts scatter. Meanwhile, in his corner office high above the city, Jackson Reed struggled with the same tumultuous thoughts. He had spent decades mastering his career, perfecting strategies, and building an empire, yet none of it had prepared him for the intrusion of Emma into his life. Every time he thought he understood the world, the universe had a way of unraveling his assumptions. He could not stop replaying the interview, the way her words had flowed with authority, passion, and intelligence, the way her eyes had met his in fleeting glances that carried a depth of understanding he had never known existed. Jackson had conducted countless interviews in his life, yet none had shaken him to the core as Emma had. She was brilliant, yes, but it was something more, something intangible, something that transcended professional admiration. The next day, Emma received a call from Sterling Tech Industries. Her heart leapt as she answered, expecting the formalities of the hiring process, yet the voice on the other end was Jackson's. "Emma," he said, the sound of her name on his lips sending a shiver down her spine. "I would like to see you again. There are matters we need to discuss in person." His tone was calm, yet under it lay a subtle urgency that made her realize this was not a routine follow-up. She agreed, suppressing the flurry of emotions threatening to spill over. When she arrived at the Sterling Tech Tower later that afternoon, the city seemed to hold its breath. Jackson greeted her at the entrance to the executive floor, and for a moment, neither of them spoke. They simply regarded each other, a silent acknowledgement of the bond that defied logic. "Please follow me," Jackson said finally, guiding her into a conference room that had been cleared of all distractions. The walls were lined with floor-to-ceiling glass, offering an uninterrupted view of the bustling city below. Yet the world outside seemed to fade the moment they sat down. Jackson leaned back, folding his hands on the polished mahogany table. "Emma, I need to be honest with you," he began, his gaze unwavering. "What happened yesterday, it was unlike anything I have experienced. I have never felt such clarity, such certainty in a connection with another person before, and yet it defies all reason." He paused, as if weighing his words carefully. "I want to understand it. I want to understand you." Emma felt a warmth rise in her chest, a mixture of excitement and nervousness. "Jackson, I feel the same way," she admitted. "I've been trying to rationalize it, to convince myself it's coincidence, but the dreams, the timing, everything, it doesn't make sense. And yet it's real, you're real." Their conversation stretched for hours, a dance of revelation and introspection. Jackson asked about her life, her choices, her dreams, while Emma probed into his experiences, his fears, and the moments that had shaped the man before her. In those hours, the professional boundaries that had seemed so rigid the day before began to blur. There was a familiarity between them that neither could explain, a sense that their lives, in some inexplicable way, had always been intertwined. Every laugh, every pause, every fleeting touch of the hand carried a weight of recognition that was both thrilling and terrifying. As the city lights began to flicker on outside, Jackson's expression softened. "Emma, I have spent my entire life chasing measurable outcomes, building structures and systems I can control. Yet here we are, facing something that cannot be quantified, analyzed, or predicted, and I find myself wanting it, needing it, even though I cannot understand it." Emma's voice trembled slightly. "I know. I've lived my life by logic and planning, yet the moment I dreamed of you, it was as if my mind knew a truth my heart had yet to discover, and now that truth stands before me." The next weeks brought a whirlwind of professional collaboration intertwined with personal discovery. Emma began working at Sterling Tech Industries, quickly demonstrating her brilliance and innovation in ways that exceeded even Jackson's high expectations. Yet each interaction carried a subtle tension, a push and pull of emotions neither dared to fully acknowledge. Meetings that were meant to be technical became charged with an undercurrent of intimacy. A casual touch on a keyboard as they discussed coding algorithms sent shivers through both of them. A shared glance during strategy sessions spoke volumes without words. Despite the professional setting, the dreams continued. They had shifted subtly, growing more detailed and more intimate. Both Emma and Jackson found themselves recalling moments from these shared visions during waking hours, often in ways that influenced their decisions, interactions, and strategies at work. It was as if the universe had given them a roadmap, one that blurred the line between imagination and reality, leading them toward something inevitable. Yet with the growing connection came a storm of uncertainty. Both were aware of the professional implications, the social scrutiny, and the potential for misunderstanding in a corporate environment. Emma questioned herself constantly. Were her feelings real or merely projections of subconscious desire influenced by dreams? Jackson wrestled with his own skepticism. Was this attraction a fleeting anomaly or a genuine connection worth risking everything he had built? One evening, after a particularly grueling project presentation that Emma had led, Jackson invited her to his office to debrief. The city was bathed in the amber glow of sunset, and the office seemed to shrink around them, isolating them from the outside world. "Emma," Jackson began, his tone unusually soft, "I can no longer separate what is happening between us from what is happening in my life. The dreams, the connection, it's too real to ignore. I need to know if you feel the same." Emma looked into his eyes, the gray depths reflecting the city lights and the truth they could not deny. "I do," she admitted quietly. "Every day I try to rationalize it, but I can't. You've become more than a dream, more than an idea. You're real, Jackson, and I don't want to lose this, even if I can't fully explain it." In that moment, an unspoken agreement passed between them. They would navigate this extraordinary bond with honesty, courage, and careful consideration, but neither would retreat from the truth they had discovered. The dreams, the timing, the impossibility of their connection, it had all led them here, to a threshold of something neither could have predicted yet both had longed for unknowingly. As night fell over Manhattan, the city below glittering with lights like a sea of stars, Emma and Jackson stood side by side at the office window. Their hands brushed lightly, an electric reminder of the invisible thread that had connected their lives. For the first time in a long while, both felt a sense of possibility that was not bound by rules, logic, or convention. It was raw, unfiltered, and utterly transformative. And though the night held uncertainties, both of them knew deep in their bones that this was only the beginning. The dreams had brought them together, but reality, messy, complicated, and unpredictable, was about to test the strength of their bond. They would need to navigate ambition, fear, and the world's expectations, all while exploring the undeniable truth that had always been waiting for them. Some connections are too profound to be denied, too extraordinary to be contained by ordinary life, and too powerful to ever be forgotten. Crossing the threshold of fate. The following weeks at Sterling Tech Industries were unlike anything Emma Clark had ever experienced. Her days, once filled with structured tasks and predictable routines, had transformed into a whirlwind of innovation, collaboration, and subtle, almost imperceptible tension. The office hummed with activity, colleagues moving between meetings, screens flashing with the latest software developments. Yet Emma's focus remained tethered to Jackson Reed in ways she could not fully understand. Every glance he gave her, every question he asked during project discussions, seemed to carry a weight far beyond the professional. It was as if the dreams that had first brought them together were continuing to guide them, weaving invisible threads that connected their thoughts, intentions, and even fears. Jackson himself found his daily routines disrupted by an unrelenting preoccupation with Emma. Decisions that had once come effortlessly now felt filtered through the lens of her presence. He found himself questioning every interaction, analyzing every conversation, and seeking her input not only for its intellectual merit, but also for the sense of alignment it brought him. Jackson was a man of reason, a master of metrics and strategy, yet nothing in his extensive experience could explain the way Emma's insights seemed to anticipate problems before they arose, as if she were attuned to the very pulse of his thinking. The more time they spent together in meetings, brainstorming sessions, and even casual hallway encounters, the more their connection deepened, layered with subtle intimacies that both terrified and exhilarated them. One evening, Jackson called Emma into his office to discuss a critical innovation project involving integrated quantum computing systems. The office, bathed in the amber glow of the setting sun, was quiet, almost isolating, with the city's skyline stretching endlessly beyond the floor-to-ceiling windows. Emma carried her tablet, filled with charts, algorithms, and projections, yet the usual sense of professional preparation was tinged with an electric awareness of Jackson's presence. They reviewed the technical aspects of the project meticulously, discussing system redundancies, optimization protocols, and implementation strategies. Yet beneath the layers of professional dialogue, there existed an unspoken conversation, a series of glances, pauses, and micro-expressions that spoke of mutual recognition, longing, and a shared understanding that transcended ordinary communication. "Emma," Jackson began, his voice unusually soft and deliberate, "I've never encountered a collaborator who operates at the intersection of technical brilliance and intuitive insight the way you do. It's remarkable." His eyes met hers, lingering as though searching for something beyond mere acknowledgement. Emma felt her pulse quicken, a mixture of pride, nervousness, and a deeper, almost unnameable feeling rising within her. "Thank you, Jackson," she replied, striving to maintain professional composure, yet aware that her heartbeat betrayed a deeper truth. "I think we make a good team because we anticipate each other's thought processes. It's rare." For Jackson, her words resonated on a level he could not fully articulate. He had spent years building a company, relying on logic, strategy, and meticulous planning, yet Emma's presence introduced an element of unpredictability he found both exhilarating and terrifying. He had always believed that connection, emotion, and intuition were distractions, liabilities in a world governed by data and efficiency. Yet here was a woman who embodied all three, and whose very existence seemed to challenge the foundation upon which he had built his life. The awareness of her brilliance, her insight, and the uncanny alignment between them ignited a fire within him, a mixture of professional admiration and personal fascination that refused to be ignored. Over the following days, their collaboration intensified. They worked late into the evenings, often alone in the office as the city outside glittered with lights. In those quiet moments, the professional veneer thinned, revealing the human emotions beneath. Curiosity, respect, admiration, and an undeniable magnetism neither could fully control. They debated strategies with intensity, occasionally clashing over technical approaches, yet each disagreement ended with a mutual recognition of the other's intellect, deepening both their respect and their personal bond. There was a rhythm to their interactions, a synchronicity that mirrored the dreams that had first connected them. It was as if some invisible force orchestrated their movements, guiding them closer with every shared task, every mutual insight, every fleeting touch. Yet with growing connection came inevitable complications. Both were acutely aware of the stakes involved. Jackson, as the CEO, was navigating not only a multi-billion-dollar company but also the delicate optics of corporate relationships. Emma, as a new hire, faced scrutiny and the potential for misinterpretation in a professional environment. Each had to balance honesty with caution, desire with prudence, and instinct with reason. Despite these challenges, neither could resist the magnetic pull that drew them together. There were moments, small, almost imperceptible, that revealed the depth of their bond. A shared smile during a technical review, hands brushing as they exchanged documents, fleeting eye contact across a conference table that conveyed more than words ever could. One rainy evening, after a long session troubleshooting integration algorithms, they found themselves alone in the office once more. The room was quiet except for the steady rhythm of rain against the windows. Jackson leaned against the edge of his desk, arms crossed, watching Emma work intently at her tablet. She, in turn, felt the weight of his gaze, an invisible pressure that made her heart flutter. For a long moment they said nothing, the silence charged with unspoken acknowledgement. Finally, Jackson spoke, his voice low and deliberate. "Emma, I cannot explain what is happening between us, but I know it is extraordinary. Every interaction, every insight, every glance, it feels like we've known each other far longer than we actually have." Emma looked up, her eyes meeting his. "I feel the same," she admitted softly. "It's impossible to rationalize. Every time I think about it, I wonder if I'm imagining the connection or if it is real. But the truth is, I cannot ignore it anymore. Not when it feels so undeniably present, so necessary." For a moment, the world outside ceased to exist. They were suspended in a space that was neither work nor casual familiarity, but a threshold of something far greater, something that neither logic nor caution could contain. Their hands brushed lightly on the tablet, a touch that sent an electric current through both of them, awakening feelings that had been nurtured in dreams and now demanded acknowledgement in reality. It was a delicate, fragile moment, yet one that held the weight of inevitability. Despite the intensity of their connection, life continued to impose its challenges. Emma's responsibilities grew, her projects demanded increasing attention, and Jackson had to navigate board meetings, investor relations, and strategic decisions that could make or break the company. Yet even amidst the chaos, the connection between them persisted, resilient and unyielding. The dreams that had brought them together continued to appear, now layered with subtle premonitions and insights that guided their waking lives. Each vision offered glimpses of solutions, hints of collaboration, and moments of intimacy that neither could ignore. As weeks turned into months, their bond deepened. Emma's confidence grew, her technical prowess recognized by the entire executive team, while Jackson found himself relying increasingly on her judgment, insight, and perspective. Yet beyond professional admiration lay an emotional current neither could fully articulate. Every conversation, every project milestone, every shared moment became a testament to the inexplicable, undeniable truth that had first connected them. Some relationships are written not by chance, but by forces beyond understanding, forces that transcend logic, reason, and even time itself. One evening, after a particularly challenging project milestone was achieved, Jackson invited Emma to step out onto the balcony of his office. The city stretched before them, an endless tapestry of lights, noise, and life. They stood side by side, the cool evening air brushing against their skin. For a moment, neither spoke. Words seemed inadequate to describe the emotions coursing through them. Finally, Jackson broke the silence. "Emma, I do not know what the future holds or where this connection will take us. But I know this, I cannot ignore it. I will not ignore it. And I want you to know that, regardless of what happens, whatever this is between us, is real." Emma felt her chest tighten, a mixture of fear and exhilaration. "I know," she whispered. "I feel it too, and even if it is impossible, even if the world does not understand, I cannot deny it, not anymore." In that moment, the world seemed to pause. The office, the city, the chaos of life itself faded into insignificance. What remained was a bond forged in dreams, solidified in reality, and destined to face challenges that neither Emma nor Jackson could yet imagine. The threshold had been crossed, the connection had been acknowledged, and the story of two people bound by fate, dreams, and unexplainable forces was only beginning to unfold. Shadows of doubt. The weeks following Emma's integration into Sterling Tech had been a whirlwind of innovation, late nights, and unspoken tension that neither she nor Jackson could fully articulate. Yet, the harmony they had carefully nurtured was beginning to face subtle fractures, the first hints of complications emerging from the shadows of the corporate world. Sterling Tech was a company built on cutting-edge innovation, ambitious projects, and high stakes, and with Emma's arrival, their visibility within the industry intensified. Competitors, board members, and even colleagues had begun to take notice, not always with favorable opinions. Rumors swirled quietly through the corridors, whispers of favoritism, speculation about the unusual rapport between the CEO and the new senior architect, and murmurs questioning professionalism. Emma felt it most acutely during meetings, sensing the slight pauses, the sidelong glances, the barely concealed skepticism. Each subtle judgment was a test, an invisible challenge she had to endure without faltering. Jackson, too, could feel the pressure. Despite his confidence, experience, and authority, the emerging scrutiny unsettled him. He was accustomed to control, to being the one who dictated outcomes and navigated high-stakes decisions, yet the intrusion of gossip and doubt threatened something far more personal than corporate reputation. He could not protect Emma from every whisper, every speculation, and yet he could not ignore the effect these subtle tensions were having on her. Each time he saw her shoulders tense slightly, the light in her eyes flicker with a hint of frustration or worry, he felt an unfamiliar surge of protectiveness, coupled with a deepening fear that the very thing they were trying to nurture, a bond born of destiny, dreams, and intuition, might be threatened by forces outside their control. One afternoon, during a high-level strategy meeting regarding Sterling Tech's next major quantum computing initiative, Emma presented a critical solution to an integration challenge. Her insights were precise, data-driven, and innovative, yet one of the senior board members, Thomas Garrett, expressed concern. "While your approach is technically sound," he began, voice carefully measured, "I am concerned that the level of collaboration you are receiving from the executive team, particularly from Mr. Reed, may compromise objectivity in evaluating these solutions. We need to ensure decisions are made without personal bias. His words were professional on the surface, yet beneath them lay the subtle implication of skepticism about Emma's influence on the CEO. Emma felt a flush of irritation but forced herself to remain composed. She had anticipated challenges, yet this was different. This was an attack on her credibility, subtly suggesting that her work was valued not solely for merit but for proximity to Jackson. She responded with calm precision, outlining the methodology behind her recommendations, demonstrating simulations, and presenting historical data validating her approach. The board members, though still wary, had no choice but to acknowledge the thoroughness and soundness of her work. Yet the moment passed, leaving a lingering tension, a reminder that in their world, excellence alone was never enough. After the meeting, Jackson approached Emma in the quiet of the executive hallway. The city's afternoon sunlight filtered through the glass, casting long shadows that mirrored the gravity of their situation. "Emma," he began, his tone low, deliberate, "I know what you're feeling. I saw it in that meeting. These insinuations, they're not about your competence. They're about perception, about control, about power. And yet I understand if it frustrates or worries you." Emma looked at him, a mixture of gratitude and apprehension in her eyes. "Jackson, I know you're right," she admitted. "I've built my career on proving my skills, on tangible outcomes, on measurable results. But this is different. This is personal in a way I can't fully explain. I feel as if every achievement is scrutinized not just for merit, but for how it aligns with you, and it's exhausting." Jackson reached out, placing a hand lightly on her shoulder. The gesture was professional, yet laden with unspoken reassurance and care. "We will face it together," he promised. "I cannot control the opinions of others, but I can ensure that you are respected, that your work is recognized, and that no one undermines your contributions." His voice carried authority tempered with vulnerability, a rare glimpse of the man behind the CEO title. For Emma, this was more than reassurance. It was a lifeline, a reminder that their bond, forged in dreams and solidified in reality, was not fragile but resilient. That evening, Emma walked the streets of Manhattan alone, the city alive with lights and noise, yet her mind focused inward. She thought about the subtle dangers that lurked not in algorithms or technical challenges, but in human perception, jealousy, and the intricate dynamics of corporate politics. She realized that her journey with Jackson was no longer confined to the boundaries of innovation and intellect. It had become a test of courage, trust, and resilience. The connection they shared was extraordinary, yes, but it was also vulnerable, exposed to forces neither could fully anticipate. She paused beneath the glowing streetlights, rain beginning to mist the pavement, and took a deep breath. She had found something rare, something meaningful, and she would not let it be eroded by doubt, gossip, or fear. Meanwhile, Jackson sat in his office long after the workday had ended. The city below shimmered like a sea of stars, yet he felt a growing storm within. He thought about the board meeting, the subtle scrutiny, the doubts cast upon Emma's capabilities. His protective instincts flared, yet he knew he had to act with strategy, not impulse. Sterling Tech was his life's work, and he could not allow personal attachment to cloud judgment or jeopardize the company's integrity. And yet the idea of Emma being diminished, questioned, or marginalized in any way was intolerable. The tension between professional duty and personal attachment weighed heavily on him, yet he resolved that he would navigate both with clarity, wisdom, and unwavering commitment. Days passed, and the external pressures only grew. Competitors launched subtle campaigns to undermine Sterling Tech's upcoming projects. Stakeholders questioned timelines, and the board continued to scrutinize decisions more carefully than ever before. Emma and Jackson found themselves navigating a delicate dance, working together closely to resolve technical challenges while managing the optics of their growing bond. Each interaction required precision, tact, and mutual trust. In this environment, their connection deepened, not only through shared intellect and ambition, but through the shared experience of facing adversity together. One night, after a particularly grueling day of crisis management and project troubleshooting, Emma and Jackson found themselves alone in the executive lounge, the office quiet except for the hum of the city below. Jackson poured 2 glasses of water and offered one to Emma. She accepted with a grateful smile, and for a moment, they simply sat in silence. The weight of the day's pressures hung between them, yet there was also a quiet strength in their presence, a shared understanding that no challenge, no obstacle could sever the bond that had grown between them. "Emma," Jackson began, his voice low and measured, We are navigating a world that is complex, unpredictable, and often unfair. Yet through it all, I find that I am drawn to you in ways I cannot explain, ways that defy logic, reason, and circumstance. And I need you to know, I will not let anything undermine what we share. Emma met his gaze, the intensity of the moment mirrored in her eyes. "Jackson, I feel the same," she whispered. "No matter the obstacles, the doubts, or the scrutiny, I will not step back from this connection. We have something rare, something beyond explanation, and I am willing to face whatever comes with you." In that quiet, shared moment, they realized that the external challenges, the doubts of colleagues, the pressures of corporate politics, the scrutiny of the world around them, were merely tests of courage, resilience, and trust. Their bond, forged in dreams and strengthened by reality, was strong enough to withstand the scrutiny, powerful enough to thrive amidst adversity, and profound enough to transform both their lives in ways neither could have anticipated. As the night deepened over Manhattan, the city lights reflecting off the glass skyscrapers, Emma and Jackson sat side by side, hands lightly touching, connected by an invisible thread that neither time, distance, nor circumstance could sever. The challenges ahead were real, formidable, and complex, yet for the first time in their lives, they felt truly equipped to face them. Not alone, but together, bound by destiny, dreams, and a connection that defied explanation, yet was undeniable in every breath, every glance, and every heartbeat. The storm before the sunrise, the tension that had begun subtly in the corridors of Sterling Tech, had now evolved into a storm that neither Emma nor Jackson could ignore. The pressure from board members, colleagues, and competitors had intensified, and Emma felt the weight of scrutiny pressing down on her every decision. Even as she excelled in her role, each success seemed accompanied by whispers of doubt, subtle insinuations that her close collaboration with Jackson was influencing the objectivity of the work she produced. Emma had always been fiercely independent, having built her career on merit and skill, yet the environment she now navigated tested her resilience in ways she had never experienced. Every email, every comment in meetings, every glance that lingered too long carried a double meaning, forcing her to balance her professional responsibilities with the personal connection that had begun to define her days. Jackson, meanwhile, was caught in the delicate balance between leadership and protectiveness. As CEO, he bore the ultimate responsibility for Sterling Tech's successes and failures, yet he also felt an intense, almost instinctive need to shield Emma from the currents of skepticism swirling around her. Each critique directed at her work struck him like a personal affront, yet he understood that any overt defense could be misconstrued, potentially worsening the perception of bias. He spent late nights crafting strategies, reviewing project data, and ensuring that Emma's contributions were recognized on their merits alone, all while struggling to contain the intensity of his feelings. The more he tried to act with rationality, the more he realized that this connection he had with Emma was reshaping not only his personal life, but also the way he led, thought, and prioritized. One afternoon, an unexpected crisis emerged that would test both their professional skills and the strength of their bond. A major technical error was discovered in the preliminary simulations for Sterling Tech's upcoming quantum computing project. The implications were severe: potential delays in launch, financial consequences, and reputational risk that could ripple across the entire tech sector. The executive team convened immediately, with Emma and Jackson at the center of the discussion. Tension hung in the room like a storm cloud, every eye on the two of them, some filled with anticipation, others with skepticism. Emma felt the familiar surge of adrenaline as she analyzed the data, her mind racing to identify solutions while simultaneously navigating the implicit scrutiny of those around her. Jackson watched her with a mixture of admiration and concern. She moved through the problem with precision, articulating complex technical solutions in a manner both accessible and compelling. Yet he was acutely aware of the subtle glances exchanged across the table, the quiet judgments whispered behind polite smiles. He knew this was not merely a test of technical competence. It was a test of endurance, of poise, and of their ability to maintain integrity under pressure. As Emma outlined her proposed solution, Jackson interjected with thoughtful questions, not to dominate the conversation, but to challenge, refine, and elevate her ideas. There was a synergy between them that was almost palpable, a rhythm that allowed them to anticipate each other's thoughts, identify potential pitfalls, and develop a strategy that none in the room could have conceived individually. After hours of intense discussion and problem-solving, the team agreed on a revised approach based on Emma's recommendations. It was a significant victory, yet the experience left both Emma and Jackson emotionally and mentally exhausted. In the quiet of his office afterward, Jackson gestured for her to sit, and for the first time that day, the professional barriers between them began to soften. "Emma," he said, his voice low and unguarded, "you handled that situation with incredible composure, clarity, and insight. I have never seen anyone approach such a challenge with your level of skill and precision. But beyond that, the way you navigate pressure, skepticism, and complexity, it's extraordinary." Emma felt a flush of warmth and relief, but also a stirring of vulnerability. "Jackson, I could not have done it without your guidance and collaboration," she admitted. "You challenge me, push me to see angles I might have missed, and somehow make it possible to stay grounded even when everything feels like chaos. I've never experienced anything like this." Their eyes met, the intensity of shared understanding and recognition bridging the distance between admiration and something deeper, more intimate. In that moment, the outside world, the pressures, the scrutiny, and the relentless demands, faded, leaving only the connection that had first begun in dreams and now thrived in reality. Yet even as they acknowledged the depth of their bond, the storm was far from over. The following week brought a direct challenge from the board, a formal review of both the project and the professional dynamics surrounding it. There were subtle suggestions that the close collaboration between Emma and Jackson could compromise objectivity, alongside an insistence on stringent oversight. It was a test that neither could have predicted, and one that demanded careful navigation. For Emma, it was a challenge to assert her authority, credibility, and independence without antagonizing the very people who held influence over her future. For Jackson, it was a delicate balancing act of defending innovation and talent while maintaining the appearance of impartiality and executive discretion. As the review progressed, Emma found herself relying not only on her technical expertise, but also on the unspoken trust she shared with Jackson. They worked as a single unit, anticipating questions, providing preemptive explanations, and supporting each other's arguments with subtle cues, shared glances, and precise articulation. By the end of the day, the board acknowledged both the technical merit of the project and the professionalism with which Emma and Jackson navigated the scrutiny. While skepticism lingered, it was tempered by undeniable results and an unshakable display of competence. That night, standing together on the balcony of the executive floor, Manhattan stretched below them, alive with lights and movement. Rain had begun to fall, creating a shimmering reflection of the city on the streets below. For a moment, neither spoke, the silence charged with a mixture of relief, exhaustion, and unspoken emotion. Finally, Jackson turned to Emma, his gray eyes reflecting the city's glow. "Emma, today was more than a test of skill. It was a test of resilience, integrity, and our ability to navigate the world together. And through it all, you proved not only your brilliance but the strength of what we share." Emma reached out, her hand lightly brushing against his. "Jackson, I've faced challenges before, but nothing like this. Nothing that demanded both my mind and my heart simultaneously. And yet, I feel more alive, more certain, and more connected than I ever have. We faced the storm and we stood together." In that moment, the city below seemed to hold its breath, as if acknowledging the profound truth that had emerged from the chaos. Their connection was no longer a fleeting anomaly, no longer confined to dreams or chance encounters. It was a force, rare, undeniable, and powerful, capable of withstanding external pressures, professional scrutiny, and the unpredictable tides of life itself. As rain continued to streak the windows, the first hints of dawn approached on the horizon, symbolizing not only the passing of night but the promise of new beginnings. Together, Emma and Jackson had faced the storm, and emerged stronger, more connected, and ready to confront whatever challenges lay ahead, bound by shared purpose, trust, and a connection that neither time nor circumstance could sever. The crucible of choice. The weeks that followed the board review were filled with a quiet intensity that neither Emma nor Jackson could ignore. Sterling Tech was entering a pivotal phase, preparing to launch a groundbreaking quantum computing initiative that had the potential to redefine the industry. Every decision, every calculation, and every strategy meeting carried weighty consequences. Emma had proven herself indispensable, not only through her technical brilliance, but also through her ability to anticipate challenges before they arose. Yet, despite her successes, the subtle pressures of perception, expectation, and scrutiny continued to press upon her. There were moments when the weight of responsibility felt suffocating, moments when she questioned her ability to maintain excellence while navigating the intricate dance of corporate politics. ambition, and the delicate bond she shared with Jackson. Jackson, for his part, felt the strain of leadership amplified by personal concern. His role as CEO demanded impartiality, foresight, and strategic acuity, yet he found himself increasingly distracted by the thought of Emma. The connection they shared was extraordinary, yet he could not allow it to compromise the integrity of the company or the fairness of decisions that affected hundreds of employees, investors, and stakeholders. Every glance, every conversation, every shared project carried the dual weight of professional responsibility and personal attachment. He struggled to compartmentalize his emotions, knowing that Sterling Tech's future, and the careers of those around them, depended on his ability to act with clarity and restraint. The first major test of this balance came unexpectedly. A leading competitor launched a sudden, aggressive campaign to discredit Sterling Tech's upcoming quantum project, claiming that key components of the system were untested and unstable. The news reached the board with urgency, triggering emergency meetings, press inquiries, and strategic recalibrations. Emma and Jackson were thrust into the eye of the storm, tasked with defending the project's integrity while maintaining stakeholder confidence. The pressure was immense, the stakes high, and the margin for error non-existent. Emma's technical expertise became the focal point, her calculations, simulations, and analyses scrutinized under intense oversight. Jackson, meanwhile, had to navigate public relations, investor concerns, and the delicate task of supporting Emma without signaling bias or favoritism. Late one evening, after a marathon session reviewing the system's redundancies and fail-safes, Emma and Jackson found themselves alone in the conference room. The city outside shimmered under a rain-soaked sky, neon reflections dancing across glass surfaces. Emma leaned back in her chair, exhaustion etched into her features, and exhaled deeply. "Jackson," she began, voice soft but resolute, "this is more than I expected. Every challenge feels magnified, every decision weighted by consequences I never imagined. And yet, I feel like I'm meant to be here to face it, even if it's terrifying." Jackson approached, his expression both commanding and tender. "Emma, you have faced more than most people encounter in a lifetime. Your mind, your resolve, your integrity, they're extraordinary. And yet what truly impresses me is how you face fear, uncertainty, and pressure without losing yourself. That is what will see us through this storm, not just technical skill or strategy." He paused, his eyes locking with hers. "I need you to know beyond professional respect or admiration that I am here, fully. Whatever comes, we face it together." For a moment, the world outside seemed to fade. The office, the city, the storm of expectations, all of it disappeared, leaving only the intensity of shared trust and understanding. Emma felt a surge of clarity and determination. "Then together we face it," she replied, her voice unwavering. "Not as CEO and engineer, not as colleague and subordinate, but as allies, as partners in this challenge. Whatever comes, we will navigate it together." The following days were a crucible. Emma and Jackson worked tirelessly, combining technical brilliance with strategic foresight. They anticipated competitor moves, preemptively addressed vulnerabilities, and demonstrated the stability, efficiency, and innovation of the quantum system to the board, investors, and public stakeholders. Every presentation, every simulation, every explanation reinforced their professional credibility while also strengthening the bond that had grown from shared dreams into shared reality. The intensity of their collaboration, the depth of their trust, and the clarity of their communication created a synergy that was impossible to ignore. And gradually, skepticism gave way to recognition. Sterling Tech's quantum initiative was not only defended, it emerged stronger, more credible, and more revolutionary than anyone had anticipated. Yet amidst the professional triumph, the personal dimension of their relationship reached a tipping point. The long hours, shared victories, and unspoken connection had created an emotional intimacy that could no longer be contained by polite boundaries or professional decorum. One night, after a particularly grueling session troubleshooting a critical algorithm, Jackson found Emma standing by the floor-to-ceiling windows, the city skyline reflected in her eyes. "Emma," he said, his voice low and deliberate, "we have navigated every technical challenge, every external doubt, every professional storm. But now, there is a choice we must face, not as colleagues, not as dreamers, but as human beings. Do we allow ourselves to acknowledge the bond between us fully and without reservation?" Emma turned to him, her expression a mixture of vulnerability, strength, and certainty. "Jackson, I have no doubt. Every day, every challenge, every shared moment has led to this. The connection we share is real, profound, and undeniable. I will not shy away from it. I will not deny it. Not now, not ever. In that charged, transformative moment, the last barriers dissolved. Professional caution, fear of perception, and the weight of expectation fell away, leaving only two people bound by destiny, choice, and mutual recognition. Their hands found each other's, a gentle yet powerful affirmation of trust and commitment. The storm outside continued, rain pelting the glass and the city lights shimmering in the darkness, but within the office there was clarity, purpose, and a quiet triumph. They had faced external challenges, internal doubts, and the unpredictable tides of life, and emerged stronger, united not only in ambition but in heart. As dawn broke over Manhattan, painting the sky in shades of gold and amber, Emma and Jackson stood side by side, looking out at the city that had brought them together. They had navigated storms, faced scrutiny, and confronted fears that threatened both professional success and personal truth. Yet they had endured, not because of luck or circumstance, but because of courage, resilience, and an unbreakable bond forged in dreams and solidified in reality. And in that moment, the future stretched before them, not uncertain, not intimidating, but full of possibility, promise, and the certainty that they would face it together, bound by the extraordinary connection that had first begun as a dream. Destiny realized. The city was waking slowly beneath the early morning sky, the first rays of sunlight glinting off the glass towers of Manhattan. But inside Sterling Tech, a quiet sense of anticipation hummed through the office. The previous weeks of intense pressure, relentless scrutiny, and painstaking problem-solving had culminated in a defining moment for the company, and for Emma and Jackson personally. Today was the day the board would present its final approval for the Quantum Computing Initiative, a project that had tested every ounce of their skill, resilience, and integrity. Yet, even amidst the professional stakes, there was an undercurrent of something far deeper, something that had grown steadily from the first shared glance, from whispered understanding, from dreams that had transcended the boundaries of sleep and reality. Emma arrived early, her laptop and documents meticulously organized, but her mind was far from the usual pre-meeting focus. She felt a nervous excitement, a subtle flutter that had little to do with the boardroom and everything to do with the man whose presence had become inseparable from her own consciousness. Jackson was already at the office, reviewing final reports and simulations, his demeanor calm but focused, a veneer of professionalism that belied the intensity of emotion beneath. When Emma entered the room, their eyes met briefly, a shared understanding passing silently between them. No words were necessary. The journey they had taken, the challenges they had faced, the unspoken bond that had grown from dreams into reality, all spoke louder than any conversation ever could. The board meeting began, a formal procession of presentations, questions, and deliberations. Emma's explanation of the final refinements to the quantum systems was meticulous and precise, her confidence steady despite the lingering tension in the room. Every graph, simulation, and technical argument reinforced the brilliance and feasibility of their work, leaving little room for doubt. Jackson followed closely, offering insights, answering probing questions, and subtly reinforcing Emma's contributions without overshadowing her voice. The synergy between them was evident, undeniable, and quietly commanding, an unspoken testament to their collaboration, intellect, and trust. The board members, initially skeptical, could not ignore the brilliance and cohesion displayed before them. As the final discussion concluded, the chairman of the board leaned forward, folding his hands. "We have reviewed the project thoroughly, and after careful consideration of the technical data, simulations, and presentations, it is clear that Sterling Tech's quantum initiative is both feasible and innovative. Furthermore, the leadership and collaboration demonstrated by Mr. Reed and Ms. Clark are exceptional. The project has our full approval, and we trust it will set a new benchmark for the industry." Relief washed over Emma, a flood of emotions she had been holding at bay for weeks. Jackson's expression mirrored her own, a mix of triumph, exhaustion, and quiet elation. Once the board had left, the office emptied, leaving Emma and Jackson alone amid the soft hum of computers and the faint echo of the city below. They stood side by side for a moment, absorbing the gravity of their accomplishment, the intensity of the challenges they had overcome, and the profound realization that they had done it together. Jackson turned to Emma, his gray eyes reflecting both pride and deep affection. "Emma, we did it. Not just the project, but everything, the skepticism, the challenges, the doubts. We faced it all and we emerged stronger together." Emma smiled, her heart full, a warmth spreading through her chest that had little to do with professional achievement. "Jackson, it feels surreal," she admitted. "All the late nights, the obstacles, the pressures, it was never just about the work. It was about finding the strength to trust, to face the impossible, and to recognize that some connections, some people, are meant to change everything about your life. And you've changed mine." He stepped closer, a soft intensity in his presence that made the air between them feel charged. "Emma, from the moment I first saw you, first in dreams and then in reality, I knew there was something extraordinary waiting. I didn't understand it, and perhaps I still can't fully explain it. But what I do know is that you have become an irreplaceable part of my life, my vision, and my purpose. And I don't ever want to imagine a future without you by my side." Emma felt her chest tighten, emotions welling up in a way she had tried to contain through logic, discipline, and professional boundaries. "Jackson, I feel the same. I've always relied on reason, on planning, on knowing the outcomes, but you've taught me that some things, some connections, defy explanation. They are felt, lived, and trusted. I am ready to face whatever comes next with you." The tension, the fear, and the exhaustion of the previous weeks seemed to dissolve in that shared moment. For the first time in what felt like a lifetime, both of them allowed themselves to simply exist in the knowledge that they had overcome together. They had faced corporate storms, industry scrutiny, personal doubt, and the uncertainty of a bond that began in dreams yet proved real. And now, with their triumph secure, they could fully embrace not only the professional victories, but the personal, profound connection that had guided them through every challenge. As the city of Manhattan stretched below them, bathed in the golden hues of sunrise, Jackson and Emma stood side by side, hands intertwined. The skyline reflected their journey, the obstacles they had faced, the storms they had endured, and the brilliance they had achieved together. In that quiet, transformative moment, the world seemed to hold its breath, acknowledging the extraordinary path they had traversed. Destiny, dreams, and choice had converged to bring them here, and the future, once uncertain and intimidating, now stretched ahead with infinite promise. The days that followed were filled with continued innovation, professional success, and the deepening of their personal bond. Emma's contributions were celebrated. Sterling Tech's quantum initiative achieved historic milestones, and both she and Jackson found themselves navigating a life that had once seemed unimaginable. The dreams that had started it all were no longer the only evidence of their connection. Reality had surpassed imagination, forging a partnership built on trust, respect, shared vision, and profound affection. They had faced the impossible, navigated storms, both literal and metaphorical, and emerged not just as colleagues or dreamers, but as partners in every sense of the word. In the quiet moments, when the city slept and the office was still, they would often reflect on the journey that had brought them together, from dreams that transcended time, to challenges that tested every fiber of their being, to triumphs that validated both skill and heart. And as they looked toward the horizon, hand in hand, they knew with unwavering certainty that the connection that had begun as a dream had become the defining reality of their lives. The future was theirs not by chance, but by courage, resilience, and the extraordinary bond that neither time, circumstance, nor challenge could ever diminish.